Hey guys, tonight we're gonna go over the Aegis Kinetic group plate carrier Gen 2. Briefly compare and contrast to the Gen 1. I was really excited when the Gen 1 came out a handful of years ago now. I don't remember, maybe more years than I care to admit. Got my hands on this. It's a really interesting design. I don't know of anything that really comes close. It's almost plate frame-ish, but I don't think that's a fair comparison to either of them. And then the Gen 2, which is coming out soon, is out pre-production. I'm not quite sure. Cleaned up the assembly a lot. There was some kind of arts and crafts that went into assembling the Gen 1. Gen 2 is much cleaner, in my opinion. If you enjoy arts and crafts, there's still some involved in the construction, especially with some of the accessories, which we'll get into. However, it's much more refined. Not that this was a bad plate carrier by any means. This was actually kind of a rather fun plate carrier. This one cleans it up a lot, and if you want or desire or need kind of a mostly hydrophobic plate carrier, still has some like well recognized materials in it, and the core fabric is pretty close to what you can get on a lot of things, but just due to being kind of an open plate pocket, it's not going to retain much water, if any. It's one benefit of it, and it's just cool. All right, so it abides by rule 1. It looks cool. It's a cool rig. But let's get on the table. We'll compare them lightly, and then we'll just kind of mainly focus on Gen 2. All right, so I don't want to linger on Gen 1 too much, but I think there's some value in showing kind of the growth of the design and where it came from. When this was initially teased, Tegris was just kind of taking hold. I think Axel was doing their thing, but not a lot of other people were using it, at least in kind of the tactical space, as far as I was aware of. And he teased it, and it had a lot of features that appealed to me. One, Tegris at the time was cool, and I just wanted more things with Tegris involved. It also had kind of onboard radio wings, which I'm a fan of, or the concept I'm a fan of. I will say there's some challenges with the execution, but it just kind of generally looked cool. It had kind of this skin that could be swapped out if you needed to change color or whatever, and keep the same core. So potentially some cost savings there. But what went into assembling it ended up being a little bit of craft work with some shot cord, and there was some kind of rough edges on the design. So you kind of used a lot of Velcro wrapping around the Tegris and everything, potentially some shot cord to tie it together, and then internal you had more elastic and shot cord and this kind of Tegris key here, which you'd slide your plate in, the elastic band would hold it in place, and then the shot cord coming across the top, and this little key would be how you retained your plates. And it was snug. It worked well to hold the plates, but potentially if you had a combat top on and body shape wasn't jiving, there was potential for rough edges. This key is kind of right up against your body. I never had any real discomfort with it, but there was definitely a chance. And depending on who you were and how it fit, I could definitely see some potential issues with the way it fit. And then the front here with the onboard radio wings, love the idea, but they ended up, because they were on top of the plate, you never really got any standoff on the cummerbund. So while they were stable, stuff was fighting for some space, unless you mounted internal to these, which wasn't bad. Actually, I did that for a while. Didn't mind it. Cool plate carrier. No real issues with this thing. It just it needed a little bit more maturing, and I think he's done it with the Gen 2. So we'll pause and reset, and we'll go over the Gen 2 here. All right, so now we're looking at the Gen 2 Aegis Kinetic Group plate carrier. which I think it looks more like a production product in my opinion, and is more ready for kind of mass market, if you will. I think the production got streamlined a little bit. There's definitely less kind of strapping going on to hold everything together. There's almost none, as a matter of fact. It is slightly less intuitive to put together, which doesn't make a ton of sense, but really it's not bad. I'm just dumb. And it refines some of the options. So for example, instead of having the onboard radio wings that are potentially a hotspot with the Tegris kind of hanging out, especially if you're a little bit smaller torso, like potentially up in your armpit, it saves him from having to make multiple iterations of this, like radio wings or not. So it has a Tegris radio wing that is reversible, so you can put it either side as needed. And I'll show you more once I get the plates out of here. But it basically threads into the side. You can tie it in with shock cord if you want. You could use gutted paracord. I would probably recommend that. I don't know that you need any stretch on it, and the gutted paracord is going to have less bulk to it. But you have some adjustment in theory on height if you want to. You could potentially pull it in further if you just wanted one column. We'll get into all that once we take this thing apart. And you also have a dangler platform that is going to mount right under the plate bag here. You have options here. You can either put it external of the plate or internal of the plate. It's much more designed to be external, but you could probably get away with it internal without too much issue if you wanted, so that your pouch kind of doesn't take up extra bulk on top of the bulk of the plate. But there's definitely a time and a place to have it external to the plate. If you've got mags and other bulk up here, then you're not really adding bulk, and it makes the pouch a little bit more accessible because you're not kind of trying to look over the plate to get to it. But again, we'll show you that once we take this apart. Okay, looking at the front plate bag, it is very straightforward. You have a PALS field up top with Velcro as well, so it's going to fit your end user devices, admin pouches, if you want more traditional pouches up there, frag or something like that, or just push to talk center mounted, it's going to play really well with that. You've got your side release buckles here, surface mount for any kind of placard needs, and additionally you have mounting holes here so that your cry fingers can engage with that. If you want to use a cry placard, you can take these off and use G-hooks here. You've got a couple different heights that you can use as needed if you have really long placard straps or shorter placard straps. You can see from the way that it's put together now, there is no wrap required to make this work. There's no elastic straps going around, anything like that. What you do have though, the cost of that, I guess, is this front panel is now kind of 2 layers, which we'll get to in a little bit. So it's slightly less overall hydrophobic than the old version. There's some more Velcro on here than there was. So it is going to retain more moisture, but I think it just works better all told. And then you do have some tie down points up here if you wanted to hard mount something, whether it be a push to talk or something, or if you wanted to zip tie some comm routing or use some shock cord up here for comm routing. You've got options, and you can tie off up there. We'll do this a little bit backwards. We'll go to the rear plate bag, and then we'll start taking everything apart. So the rear plate bag is very straightforward. Straight Molly field, PALS field with some Velcro up top for ID placards if you need them. It is a fairly full footprint here. I think arguably could have pushed one more row on the outer edges here. I'm not quite sure how close that would get to the edge. Maybe cheat and make it like a 3/4 wide cut there, so that you could still get some like softer straps through there, some Blue Force gear, Hypalong loops or something like that. without getting too close to the edge up here and possibly compromising any strength. And then what's really kind of slick on here and well put together is the cummerbund pass-through is about the lowest bulk cummerbund pass-through I think I've ever seen. And it's set up inside there to be really flexible as far as what cummerbunds it'll take. So we'll get to that in just a minute as well. And then we'll take one of these plates out, and then I'll get kind of the plates out of the way, and we'll walk through the rest of the assembly here. So it is, this style seems to be becoming more and more popular with kind of the do-it-all shaping of plate pockets and the ability to close them up with Velcro like this has here. So you've got a large chunk of Velcro that's essentially small sappy sized, and then you've got straps coming around to secure the plate bag and take out any slack. So while I said there's not a lot of straps wrapping around, that's more on like the exterior of it. These are coming just off the sides of the plate bags, so they're not in the way of anything, and it doesn't look kind of like as much of just a strap running around your plate to hold it together. So just undoing these fingers is really easy. Great continuity though, and it's like the first spear loop that's just super low profile, and this has that also super low profile hook up here, so it's not crazy aggressive because this is going to be up against your body. There's good continuity, no real concerns with that coming undone. Shoulder straps are retained by these two, so we'll get into that in just a little bit. And then the top strap here on the plate bag, and then that just opens up your plate pocket there. If you want the dangler on here, it's a little bit of work to get it on there, nothing bad. You just have to fold up the Velcro here, work it through this slot, and you bring that down. And like I was saying, if you want it kind of internal to the sappy, you can do it that way. If you want it external, you're just going to bring it the rest of the way down and then close it up like that. All right, so I'm going to get the plates out of the way, and then we'll walk through kind of how this thing is all put together. All right, so I want to look at the front plate bag first here. So with the kind of Tegris core out of the way, you can see a little bit of reinforcing behind those grommets from the front panel there. So if you're zip tying or shock cording, you are not going to accidentally pinch this corner closer together and kind of kink up the fabric of your bag because it's reinforced by that Tegris and in theory reinforced by the core as well. So you can kind of really torque down whatever is tied off up there. Talking about the radio wing here. So I said you can adjust the height a little bit if you need to. That is true, sort of. It's not as ideal. So with the kind of plate bag closed up here and this Velcro strap coming around, that can kind of only go through one portion on here. But you could kind of cheat that if you needed to tie this higher or lower. It would not be as ideal, right? The most ideal way to do this is this strap is going to come through the radio wing and then secure onto here, while internally it is tied off into these holes. You could also potentially, and I don't know if he's going to sell a kit to do anything like this because this is still kind of prototype-ish. You could Chicago screw this on here and have it be fairly low profile. It's going to rub up against your plate a little bit, which might potentially cause some long-term wear, but it would be really low profile if you got small enough Chicago screws or thin enough Chicago screws to just essentially bolt this on here. At that point, you wouldn't really need this strap feeding through here. And then other potential options in future iterations or yourself is to just kind of lengthen this slot one way or the other. So if you wanted this to ride a little bit higher, maybe you've got taller radios, you could cut out the slot just a little bit. All right, we'll go all the way up here, and you can kind of see like the finger is in line right here. You'd have to cut the slot down a little bit further, but you could do it without causing you too much concern, as far as I can tell. All right, and again, this is reversible. If you want 2 radios, you just buy 2 of them. You could potentially also mount side plates on here, which I think would work really well because they would be fully supported, especially if you went like the Chicago screw option. You wouldn't get the whole plate mounted on here. You might only get half of it, but the plate is rigid, coming off of the rigid mounting plate, coming off of the rigid plate bag. Your side plate shouldn't flop around on you at all, but you do have some flex here to help it wrap around your body better. And then the dangler also mounts similarly, right? So the plate bag or internal portion of the plate bag routes through that hole there, and then it lines up with these holes. You can attach that again however you want to, and then close your plate up, and there you go, Bob's your uncle. You got a dangler platform. I will say, at least on this prototype, right, these edges are rounded a little bit better on the radio wings than they are on the dangler pouch or dangler panel. So that is something to think about. You've got a little bit of a sharp edge there. Probably not a real issue, but that is something to consider, right? Moving on to the rear plate here. So this is probably going to fight me a little bit. Here is the cummerbund pass-through. So you've got your Tegris backer and then your fabric kind of shell there. And it is set up with this squadron kind of ladder here. So you can feed in your Cry or Spiritus cummerbunds and tie them off somewhere in this Velcro field. You can also use Velcro mounted cummerbunds just fine. You just skip the ribbon here, mount it straight to this plate, and then kind of the tunnel comes from the plate bag here. That's going to line up down here. There is some Velcro if you're cummerbund free down this low. If you're not, you're just going to kind of skip that Velcro, but it makes a nice kind of narrow-ish pass-through here for your cummerbund. And then this is going to wrap around, so you've got the Tegris plate and then Velcro there to kind of close that up. So that's how the cummerbund pass-through works. What else is cool on here, and you're going to want your plate out to set this up, but this plate carrier has the potential to support some crazy heavy back panels. Obviously the weight is still on the plate carrier. That may not be ideal for the human wearing it, but as far as structural strength goes, we've talked about structural cummerbunds for quite a while. Now you have structured plate bags, and because the Tegris is cut underneath the squadron shell, your first couple rows up top here, you can weave the pouch or the back panel or whatever through both the squadron and the Tegris behind it. So your pouch is actually mounted to, like, directly mounted to the core of the plate carrier. And that's going to be crazy strong for whatever goofy, heavy, like, map, or if you're hanging a beaver tail pack off of here or something like that. Like, the whole of the plate bag is supporting that weight, which I think is kind of cool. Right? In practice, how often that's going to be needed, I don't know, but it's nice that you can. And then additionally, you have more holes drilled in the bottom half of here, so much like the plate frame redo, you can put your radio wings off the back here, and you can mount those Chicago screw, whatever you want to have radios coming off of the back plate. And on this one, you do have significantly more flexibility because there's no strap trying to fight to get through there. you can line this thing kind of wherever you want. You could pull it all the way in if you just wanted like a breech pen or something like that and just needed one column there. You could potentially take it if you had some really legit mounting, or you tied this thing down like crazy, you can extend it a little bit further to get more standoff from the plates there if you had kind of a wider radio that you were trying to mount here. Or if you're just I don't know, if you're just that guy and you wanted side plates coming off the back, you could do that as well. I don't know why you would do that, but maybe if you were like skinny enough, I guess, that the back mounted side plate is same as front mounted side plate, I don't know, you could do that without too much issue. So I think that's pretty cool. And then it all closes up nice and neat, folds over that Tegris as you've already seen, and there is your rear plate bag. All right, and then the last piece we haven't really addressed is the shoulder straps. What I appreciate about the shoulder straps here is the strap itself, and actually I know this because I ran into this issue with the first one. The strap itself is not attached to the plate bags in any way, shape, or form. So you've got shoulder strap mounting attached to the rear plate bag, but the shoulder strap itself is a free-running piece of webbing terminated by tubes and then Velcro sandwich in the back. And if you are huge or you are small, you can get custom-made shoulder straps. So when I initially got the Gen 1, the shoulder straps were too long. I could not get the plate bags to ride high enough. Even pulling the slack out, like I just had floppy end of shoulder strap. So I ended up going back to Aegis and having him custom make some shorter shoulder straps, which worked out really well. And then there was no fighting the tail of the shoulder strap. I didn't have to do anything with the plate bags. I just took the strap out completely, measured where I needed it to be, sent it off, and he whipped up some new ones for me. I'm not saying that that's a forever option from him, but if you've got some support, some sewing support or something like that, you can absolutely do it. And if this thing just like royally came from together and you were in kind of an austere situation, it's just 2-inch webbing is what you need to replace it, or 1.5-inch webbing. Run it back through that buckle and you're good to go, as long as you can get your tube back on there. Right? So pretty well thought out setup, in my opinion. I'm a fan of this thing. I don't know what's going to change before it gets released altogether, but it is it's well done. Right? And then I think I failed to mention on the front plate bag, it is tubes compatible, repair tubes there. Not sure if it's going to come with those or not. This one did. And then you do have a small tie-off point hanging off the side here. But there you go. Aegis Kinetic Group, Plate Carrier Gen 2. I don't know if it's got a snazzy name yet, but there you go. Thanks, guys.